welcome to another episode of Blue Raider Extra Point. I'm Noah Brady, joined alongside my co-hosts Adam Brown and Dylan Simmons here in the heart of campus of Middle Tennessee State University, the Blue Raider Hall of Fame. Very excited to bring you another exciting week of college football action. Adam, we're going to kick it off with you. Take us around the CUSA.
So this week we're going to talk point spreads, and every point spread in Conference USA is double digits, and I've got the two closest ones for you, so let's take a look.
This week on Around the CUSA, we're going to talk odds, bets, and spreads by checking out the two closest spreads in the conference. Up first, we have La Tech taking on South Alabama as a 13.5-point underdog. La Tech has had a tough start to the season with an even tougher schedule. The Bulldogs continue that tough schedule against a South Alabama Jaguars team that has looked good so far. Tech has only rushed for 323 yards total this season and are giving up nearly 40 points a game. The Jaguars, however, have been more efficient than Tech in every way and have only allowed a total of 94 yards on the ground. They're coming off a trip to UCLA where the Bruins needed a last-minute field goal to win. A frustrating loss with the La Tech team that may have to pay the price. While this is the second closest spread of the week, look for South Alabama to cover in this game. Our next stop is the closest spread of the week, where the Memphis Tigers will be taking on North Texas as an 11.5-point favorite. The Tigers have played better competition than the Mean Green so far this season, but because of that, it's hard to know what this team really is. They look almost identical to North Texas statistically and will look to quarterback Seth Hennigan to lead them to victory. For the Mean Green, while looking similar to Memphis statistically, there are two factors that stand out. The first is running back Ayo Ajayi, who has almost 200 more rushing yards than the Tigers' leading rusher. And the second being that North Texas is 6-2 against the spread in their last 8 away games. The Mean Green could make this a close one in the Liberty Bowl that you might want to leave alone if you're betting point spreads.
If you're looking to get any last-second point spread action in before kickoff, there's everything you need to know.
Yeah, and I got to say, looking at this North Texas-Memphis matchup, it's going to be a really interesting one this week. We've got Austin Ayoun. He threw 2 picks last week. I'm going to be interested to see how he responds with this one. And also Memphis, Seth Hennigan at quarterback. He's played out of his mind so far, over 900 yards passing already. He's going to be the X factor in this one. Really awesome game, and I think it's going to be great in terms of CUSA.
Guys, and with North Texas being on the road in Memphis this week, that's the only bit of CUSA action happening in the state of Tennessee. But with that being said, let's take a look at the rest of the CUSA matchups coming up later today. That's the slate of matchups coming up later today around the CUSA, but wait, there's more. We've got the scoop, the scouting report, and more on the other side of the break. Blue Raider Extra Point will be right back, right here on True Blue TV.
If I could go back and change it all, I would. I think I'm gonna miss you the most. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Maybe it's just the little moments. If I could go back and change it all, if I could go back, I would. But I can't.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
The black truck? Hey, Christina from accounting.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, I used to date a girl named Christina.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then she dumped me for my best friend. You want to see some photos of them that I took?
I don't.
I thought we talked about this, buddy.
Buzzed and overshared again?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna call a car.
That's a smart idea.
So yeah, I know, that's why I did it.
Hey, you're gonna get back to the top of the mountain.
Does that mean I'm gonna get back with Christina?
No.
Oh.
No.
Welcome back to Blue Raider Extra Point. Let's broaden the playing field a little bit and get outside the football world for a second. Dylan Simmons has this week's Big Blue Review.
Yeah, we're going to be catching up with MTSU women's soccer as they've opened their CUSA slate of games. And we're also going to check in with MTSU volleyball and see what they did in the Red Storm Invitational. Let's take a look.
The MTSU women's soccer team has begun their slate of games for Conference USA, which they started last Sunday against the UAB Lady Blazers. They were faced with an early deficit of 1-0, but Emma Peterson rallied in the spirit of the tortoise and the hare to score her first career and MT's first goal of the game in the 52nd minute of action. Unfortunately, a problem worse than something found in trigonometry would end up coming in the form of a UAB goal in the 86th minute by virtue of the Blazers' Jessica Wheeler. UAB would hold on to the 2-1 score to claim victory, sending MTSU to 2-5-1 overall on the season. Coach Aston Roden said of the loss, "This was a tough road loss for us. I thought we played well enough to get more from the game." The Blue Raiders will look to rebound in a big way as they will host CUSA opponents like North Texas and Western Kentucky next. The Blue Raiders volleyball team made their mark in the Red Storm Invitational this past weekend. They faced a group of challengers worthy of Olympic beach volleyball. MTSU would respond in kind by first handing a loss to the previously unbeaten Boston College by a score of 3-1 and winning by the same margin against Columbia. The hot streak would hit the refrigerator against St. John's, however, as MT would this time have the script and score flipped against them 1-3. Despite the tough ending, the Blue Raiders were incredibly impressive. In addition, two sensational stars in freshman Audrey Rhoda and junior Taylor Eisert were named to the all-tournament team as a result of their electrifying play. MT appears to be battling back like the Philadelphia Eagles to make a statement in CUSA volleyball, which kicks into full swing this week for the Raiders.
Well, guys, as you can see, MTSU women's volleyball and soccer are both making big strides.
Yeah, it's always exciting when the other fall sports other than football really start to take shape. And then you love to see those two big wins from the Lady Raiders volleyball team. And what is also exciting is when the Blue Raider hockey team takes the ice, and we'll have your full live coverage, including play-by-play on MTN Sports. But for now, we're going to take a look at the spotlight where our own Noah Brady is going to take us back in time to look at the history between MTSU and Miami.
It's been 90 years exactly since MTSU was faced off against the Hurricanes of Miami University. To put that into Blue Raider terms, that predates Johnny Red Floyd Stadium, our favorite mascot Lightning, the NCAA, and even the Blue Raider name itself. Back then, instead of the Blue Raiders, it was the Middle Tennessee State Teacher Football Program lighting up score sheets in the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Association. But if there's one thing that stayed the same across the last century of football action, Miami has always been a matchup that MTSU has had circled on their calendars. On their last road trip of the 1932 football campaign, Coach Frank Falkenberry and the 28 members of the Middle Tennessee football program head to South Florida for some warmer weather and a spirited bout. That's right, at approximately 3 o'clock tomorrow, the teachers of Middle Tennessee will take on Coach Tommy McCann's Fighting Hurricanes of the University of Miami. Now remember, folks, it was this time last year, late November, when the Hurricanes made their way here to Murfreesboro in what is now known by all of Miami football fans as the Suicide Trip of 1931. The Middle Tennessee 25-0 beatdown is something that the Hurricanes certainly have remembered, and something that they'll certainly be looking to avenge. It's sure to be a battle for the ages as Luther Smith, Middle Tennessee's captain, and his rowdy bunch look to bounce back after a tough loss to Tennessee Tech and end this football season on a high note. A lot, and I mean a lot, has happened in the last century of football, but if you don't take anything else away from this history lesson, hear this. Any team can beat any team on any given week, and if Miami disregards that going into battle with the Big Blue Nation of Middle Tennessee State, history might just repeat itself. In Murfreesboro, Noah Brady, MTN Sports. Hope you enjoyed that blast from the past between MTSU and Miami. We'll be right back with more after this.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could go back and change it all, I would. I think I'm gonna miss you the most. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Maybe it's just the little moments. If I could go back and change it all, if I could go back, I would. But I can't.
Up next, we'll check out the scouting report with Zachary Loan as he takes us inside the eye of the Hurricanes. Let's take a look.
This week, the Blue Raiders will face their toughest test as they head to Hard Rock Stadium as they take on the number 25 Miami Hurricanes. The Hurricanes are coming into this game off of a tough 17-9 loss against Texas A&M. The Hurricanes are averaging 218 yards on the ground per game. The rushing attack is led by Henry Parrish Jr. Parrish is averaging 100 yards per game on the ground and has already scored 4 touchdowns this year. The Blue Raiders' rush defense, though, has been stout, allowing only 104 yards per game. But the big number is that they are only allowing 2.8 yards per carry. Another thing to watch out for, the Blue Raiders have yet to allow a rushing touchdown this year. This will be a match of strength on strength. Miami's defense as a whole has been solid as they have only allowed opponents to reach pay dirt 4 times through 3 games. MTSU is coming off a game in which they scored 6 touchdowns in the first half. Miami's defense has only allowed 83.7 yards per game on the ground though, but MTSU has rushed for 116 yards per game. These 2 things are something to keep a close eye on this weekend. Something to watch out for is the passing attack. Earlier this week, starting wide receivers Xavier Restrepo and Jacoby George were ruled out this weekend. The Hurricanes are only averaging 218 yards through the air per game, but they have scored 9 passing touchdowns on the year. The Blue Raiders defense has given up 230 yards per game through the air and also 10 touchdowns through the air on the season. Can the Blue Raiders stay consistent this week? Well, we will find out shortly.
Thank you, Zachary, for showing us what kind of shelter MTSU will be using against the Hurricanes this week.
Dylan, it might be the Hurricanes taking some shelter, but anyway, let's catch up with Grant Langston to see what he has in store this week on The Scoop.
All right, joining me tonight on The Scoop is Christopher DeMond from the Miami Hurricane. To get us started, will you just tell me a little bit about this Miami team? I know it's Mario Cristobal's first season with the program.
As you just said, Mario Cristobal, first-year head coach of the Miami Hurricanes, and we've got an entirely new coaching staff as well. We have Tyler Van Dyke, but in a new offensive system. So kind of what we've seen early on is he's been struggling a little bit, had some inaccurate throws these past 3 games. Part of that is on him, but it's also on our wide receiver. I am pleased on the defensive end. We've had a number of takeaways this season, and our D-line's been looking pretty good. So
yeah, touching on that offense, as you mentioned, those wide receivers have certainly looked suspect. This is the last game before conference play, if I'm not mistaken. So what is the message Cristobal's giving to the team in this last kind of little tune-up game before you get into those ones that really matter?
The vibe that I've gotten from Cristobal games and sitting in on his press conferences is Cristobal views this as, it's just another game. Texas A&M, that was a game. Middle Tennessee State, this is another game. There's always potential for upset in college football, and he's going to make sure the guys are ready to play come this Saturday.
But yeah, that leads me to kind of my last thing is, what does Miami have to do this week to beat Middle Tennessee State?
A lot of it is discipline and kind of getting past those miscues that we had last week against A&M. And that applies to not only the players, but the coaches as well. A lot of people thought there was some questionable play calling. We were in the red zone 5 or 6 times. We couldn't come away with a touchdown. We got to keep Middle Tennessee State's defense on their toes a little. It's really just not shooting ourselves in the foot and getting our offense back on track. And I think if we do that, then we'll be able to beat Middle Tennessee State.
All right. Well, that's all for The Scoop this week. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Grant. All right, guys, let's get your keys for the Blue Raiders to be successful this week. Dylan, we'll start with you.
For number one, I've got sweep the leg. Guys, MTSU is going to need to attack Miami's weak spot, and that's going to be the wide receiver core. They've lost Xavier Strepo, their best wide receiver. If they can get to that weak spot, I don't think Miami's going to know what hit them. MTSU will be able to make the victory much easier. Number two, Chase is on the case. Chase Cunningham is going to need to be Beethoven. He's going to need to conduct like a master in this game. And I think if he can take that next step, it's going to be all the more crucial for MTSU. I don't think Frank Peason's going to be able to attack as well, so I think Chase is going to be huge. And number three, stay in the eye. MTSU has to not be intimidated by Hard Rock Stadium. They need to go in, score a couple touchdowns, and silence that student section. I can speak from experience, that will do it. It's going to be huge for them.
All right, so for my first key, I've got win the turnover battle. When a lower-ranked school beats a higher-ranked school, it's almost always because of turnovers. So that's going to be huge for MTSU. Two, we got to capitalize on those turnovers. We can't just be okay with the fact that we stole an offensive possession. We've got to put the ball in the end zone and score. And then finally, we've got to press the kicking game. That's a great way to cause turnovers. And even if we don't, the kicking game is a huge way to win the field position battle.
Absolutely, and for me, downhill sledding in the Miami Heat, and the only way you're doing that is through a mudslide. We need a Frank Peasant mudslide. The ground and pound game is going to be huge for MTSU establishing their offense. Speaking of offense, eyes up and on target. That's what Chase Cunningham has to be. He had 10 different targets last week, one of those being Isaiah Gaddings. Got to have him in this week's matchup. Finally, force Miami to score on offense. We've been talking about the defenses all week long. MTSU and Miami both bringing a lot to the table defensively. It's what offense is going to keep the opposing defense on the field the longest to wear them out. That's going to keep MTSU in this game. Those are our keys for the Blue Raiders to be successful. We'll be back with more right here on Blue Raider Extra Point.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
If I could go back and change it all, I would. I think I'm gonna miss you the most. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Maybe it's just the little moments. If I could go back and change it all, if I could go back, I would. But I can't.
Welcome back to Blue Raider Extra Point. Guys, it's our favorite part of the show. It is time for the picks. And today on our show, we're joined by Sam Doughton of MTSU Athletic Communications. Sam, thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you all for having me. I'm really excited to get things started and get through some picks on this Saturday.
Awesome. Dylan, we're going to kick it off with you. Let's go Texas Southern, UTSA.
Yeah, guys, I got to say, I'm kind of disheartened. UTSA is below 500 right now. It's hard for me to stomach. But you know what? I love what the Roadrunners are doing. I still think they're my pick to win the CUSA. They're going to get the ship righted. They've always got playmakers with Zachary Franklin and Frank Harris. They're going to get things going in the right direction. And they've got a nice tune-up game this week. Give me UTSA.
I agree, Dylan. I think this is a glorified practice for the Roadrunners, and I think they get the win this week.
As you say, UTSA is scheduled tough, which is what you're supposed to do when you have the championship pedigree that they suddenly have for their first Conference USA championship. 3 really tough games to open the years for them, coming out 1-2. They'll get to 2-2 this week against Texas Southern.
I hate to keep us all on the same page on the panel, but I'm going to have to go with the Roadrunners as well. I hate that they didn't get the upset last week, but I like them at home. Next up, we've got North Texas at Memphis facing off against the Tigers.
I should have known better than to trust North Texas. I was fooled last week. They gave up 58 points. I know what happens in Vegas is supposed to stay in Vegas, but there is no hiding that defense. That was atrocious. I'm sorry. And I now know my mistake. North Texas has got to fix that first. And Memphis has Seth Hannigan at quarterback. He's going to light up that defense. Memphis wins big.
Yeah, like I said in Around the CUSA, North Texas is 6-2 in their last 8 games against the spread. And I think if they can get the offense going early, they keep that trend and they cover, but Memphis still gets the win.
I agree with you on the cover there. Seth Littrell's coaching for his job at North Texas at this point. He's going to get that team playing at a much higher level than they did on the road in Vegas this week. Memphis just got too many players for them to overcome the overall.
This is the only bit of CUSA action happening in Tennessee this week, and I like Memphis at home. All right, let's go FIU, WKU.
Yeah, the only CUSA head-to-head matchup this week, so there's a lot of implications in this one. I do think Western Kentucky's got the better offense right now. Austin Reed's looked pretty good so far, already has 9 touchdowns, is playing well. I just don't trust FIU's defense. And remember, Western's lone loss is to a Power 5 team in Indiana. Give me the Hilltoppers, as hard as it is to say.
Yeah, Western is a 31-point favorite this week, and they may have Vegas fooled, but I'm not fooled. I think FIU covers, but Western unfortunately still gets the win.
FIU's much improved this year from where they were last year. Unfortunately for FIU, it's a pretty easy bar to meet from where they were last season. Western Kentucky's going to be playing with a little chip on their shoulder after really should have winning on the road to Indiana this week. Hilltoppers by a lot.
I agree that WKU is going to be playing with a chip on their shoulders, but it's still not enough for me to pick them. Y'all already know I'm going FIU in this one. Rice at Houston.
I would like to start this by issuing a public apology to Rice. They proved me wrong last week. They beat Louisiana.
Yes, they did.
And they didn't look bland doing it. In fact, they looked like a filet mignon steak. They looked amazing. And I got to say, I got to give them credit for that. And you know what? I'm going to start by making it up to them. They're going to carry that momentum against a Houston team that's been on a downslide as of late. I don't think they're going in the right direction. I think TJ McMahon is playing really good football, even with the interceptions. I think he's going to clean it up. Give me Rice in an upset. I'm taking Rice to win this game.
Yeah, Dylan, as much as we've given Rice a hard time, I think Houston fixes that downslide that you're talking about, and I think they get the win this week.
Bit of a throwback Conference USA matchup. Rice and Houston used to both be in the conference at the same time. Now both are going to be in the American Athletic next year. I do think Houston's got just a little bit more talent than Rice at this point. The Rice's win over Louisiana was a really big deal for Conference USA this past week, but give me the Cougars.
The Owls took care of me last week, so I'm going to stick with them this week. Give me Rice on the road. All right, let's go Louisiana Tech, South Alabama.
Well, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be against Clemson, but again, Louisiana Tech didn't have a rushing game. Less than 10 yards from any rusher. No rusher eclipsed 10 yards. That is not going to cut it. Louisiana Tech is really struggling in that department right now. I think Parker McNeil is going to have to tone down the interceptions. South Alabama has looked really good so far. Guys, their only loss was to UCLA in the Rose Bowl last week. Give me South Alabama.
So it took a field goal for UCLA to get that win, and South Alabama, guys, has only allowed 94 yards on the ground throughout this entire season so far, and I think South Alabama wins.
I'm sort of on the LA Tech train here. I think Louisiana Tech has been playing a lot better of late. Sonny Cumbie's done a nice job reestablishing his culture down there. And it's just tough to run the ball against a Clemson Tigers team that's going to be out muscling you a lot of the times for a rebuilding team. South Alabama, I think, is a little bit cursed after going for a fake field goal last week. So give me the Bulldogs.
I was bold in my pick last week with La Tech, but I'm going to stick with them this week. I really like the way that they played against a very stout Clemson Tigers defense, especially on the road. I like La Tech on the road again this week. Florida Atlantic and Purdue.
I was ready for the Battle of Florida last week, but I got to admit, guys, it didn't live up to the hype. UCF completely demolished them. FAU looked a little outmatched. I still believe in what they're doing. I still think they've got a great offense. N'Kosi Perry, Larry McCammon, they're a good team. They're just going to have to prove it. Purdue is a team that's been having their moments, but they lost a game to Syracuse. They already lost to Penn State earlier this year, but I do think they're going to clean this up. I like O'Connell. I think he is going to really be the conductor that's going to lead Purdue. Give me the Boilermakers.
Yeah, Dylan, I agree with you. As much as you guys know I love my FAU Owls and that high-powered offense, I've got to take the Boilermakers this week.
Purdue played pretty well on the road at Syracuse last week, and by far one of the strangest games that I've watched in the noontime slot this year, and a lot of really strange games in the noontime slot this year. I think they take care of it at home, though, against an FAU team that hasn't quite found their footing on offense all the way yet.
And once again, another clean sweep. I'm taking Purdue in this one as well. Let's go Charlotte, South Carolina.
I had to eat a lot of crow this week, guys. Charlotte also proved me wrong by winning against Georgia State last week, so I got to give them kudos for that, but I'm not entirely convinced that Georgia State team is 0-3. South Carolina is a team that's contended against Arkansas, not so much against Georgia, but it's Georgia, so who can blame them? I think Spencer Rattler's going to have a big game. I think South Carolina takes this one easily.
Yeah, Dylan, again, I agree with you. I think Spencer Rattler has a big game this week, and I think South Carolina wins.
Chris Reynolds getting back for Charlotte's a huge deal for that team. They look like a totally different program when he's under the center. Unfortunately for them, South Carolina's coming off a really bad loss to Georgia. Shane Beamer's not going to want to be crossing the press conference. South Carolina wins big.
I agree. South Carolina takes this one by a big margin. Even on a good day for Charlotte, it's not going to be enough to stack up against South Carolina, especially on the road. All right, guys, you know there's a right pick here. Even though we're against a ranked team, MTSU on the road in Hurricane Country against Miami.
Guys, this has been the hardest week I've ever had as a college football fan. We've got the team that I go to college for against my favorite college football team. This was going to be a tough decision. It always was. I love MTSU. They dominated Tennessee State. Miami looked a little bit uncertain against Texas A&M. Not great receiving core, not a great look for them. And I gotta say, MTSU is going in with all the momentum. But at the end of the day, there's only one team that can be picked because it doesn't matter how much lightning you have. You cannot stop a hurricane. Lee Corso tribute right here. Give me the Miami Hurricanes.
We're seriously gonna have to start checking his pockets.
He comes in with something every week. You kill me, Dylan. I don't know how you have the room in your pants for that, man.
Always do.
I want to pick MTSU just because you pulled a hat out of your pants, but I still can't do it. I think Miami's going to be too solid defensively, and I don't think our offense is going to be able to score many points.
So fun fact, all you Blue Raider fans out there, Middle Tennessee State is 2-0 all time against the Miami Hurricanes.
Oh, believe me, Sam, they know because I've been screaming it to them all week long.
Wins in 1931 and 1932, in which Middle Tennessee allowed a point in neither game, whether it was here in Murfreesboro or on the road in Miami. I think Middle Tennessee's got enough defensive firepower to keep the game close in the last second, and Zeke Rankin makes a big kick at the end of the game to put us ahead. I'll go Middle.
I'm on that same bandwagon with you, Sam, and let me tell you why. Any team can beat any team on any given week, and Miami, I think they're throwing this one out the window. They're looking for a huge win at home. They're looking to put up some big numbers. I don't think this game's separated by more than 13 points. I think it's going to be a 13-point game, and it's going to come down to the fourth quarter. Might even be a game of who has the ball last, depending on what kind of MTSU offense decides to show up that day. Frank's got to get going, though. They got to ride the Frank train all day long. It's got to be downhill sledding in Hurricane Country. I'm taking MTSU in this one.
Be sure to follow us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter for all your Blue Raider coverage and more.
So Sam, before we go, I know you used to work at the Walt Disney Resort in Orlando. How in the world did you get from there to MTSU's athletic department in the span of the last couple of years?
Well, you know, the little help from the COVID-19 pandemic, helping lay off a lot of us, not just at Disney World, but all over the country from all of our businesses. So I didn't really have a way to stay in Florida, so I ended up moving back home to North Carolina. Worked at my hometown university, Wake Forest University. Those guys helped me out, and from there, made the connections that helped get me this job here, and I've really enjoyed it for the past year.
Sam, looking over the whole landscape of college football this weekend, what game are you looking forward to the most?
Well, I'm really excited for Notre Dame coming on the road to where I cut my teeth in college football at the University of North Carolina. Our deputy athletic director, Lee DeLeon, he went to undergrad at the University of Notre Dame. I, of course, am a UNC graduate. So we've had a fun office rivalry going this week. It's really helped get the excitement up even higher for me.
Sam, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you all for joining us here on another episode of Blue Raider Extra Point. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have left for today.
If you missed this or any episode, you can check it out on MiddleTennesseeNews.net and hit the sports tab.
Be sure to follow us at MTN Sports on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Well, guys, what do you think?
I really think you should have brought a physical Ibis into the studio if you were going to bring the hat out.
Logistically, that would have been impossible.
I would have loved to watch the process of him capturing.
Yes, it would have been a great segment.
I thought the jacket was coming off and you were going to do a whole hurricane number.
No, I wasn't going to.
The black truck? Hey, Christina from accounting.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, I used to date a girl named Christina.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then she dumped me for my best friend. You want to see some photos of them that I took?
I don't.
I thought we talked about this, buddy.
Buzzed and overshared again?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna call a car.
That's a smart idea.
So yeah, I know, that's why I did it.
Hey, you're gonna get back to the top of the mountain.
Does that mean I'm gonna get back with Christina?